A KPI is a key performance indicator. And as you see here, it's a metric used to evaluate factors that are crucial to the success of your business. So these are the things that we need to measure on a weekly, daily sometimes, and monthly basis to ensure our business is going in the direction that we want it to go. So the first thing I want you to notice is the top KPI is an action. The second is contacts. The third is database. The fourth is leads. The fifth is appointments set. The sixth is appointments going on. Seventh is presentations. Eighth is contracts signed. And ninth is closings. And I want you to think about this. If a real estate agent is proud of themselves and they say, I've got such a great month going, I have 5 closings this month. That's outstanding, but that is what we call a lag indicator of business. So the current clients that they're closing is actually from their past. It's from the success and the energy that they put out in the past and is not a good predictor of the future. If you talk about presentations and getting contracts signed and or going on appointments, that's kind of the present. That's what they're doing right now. Those are the activities. I went on an appointment today. I gave a listing presentation or a buyer presentation, and or I got a contract signed today. Those are all things that are currently going on. Again, this is great because this tells us that we're going to have closings here in the near future, yet it doesn't give us a predictor of what business is going to look like maybe 90 days from now. It's going to tell us that we're going to have some closings coming up in the next 30 to 60 days, but the next 90 days may be bleak. Then if we look at actions and contacts and reaching out to the database and leads, that all is our future. So all of our potential lies in the future. Another way to look at this is if an agent is having a slow month, we need to get them focused on the future, which is the actions, the contacts that they're making, and the database. I like to think of these indicators as gauges, like in the cockpit of an airplane, and they're going to show me my altitude of which the plane is flying at, the speed of the plane, and to let me know if the nose of the plane is going up or if it's pointing towards the ground. Meaning, if my actions and my contacts are low, the plane is descending towards the ground. If the actions and contacts are high, the plane is accelerating and gaining altitude. So we want to ensure that our plane is staying in the air at all times. And by helping the agent record and track these, it's going to help them ensure that there's business to always be had in the future, even when they're having a good present or a great past with their 5 closings they have this month. Now, another reason that tracking is important is it gives us a bit of understanding of conversion ratios in between each step. So you can see here, actions lead to answers or results, which lead to appointments, which lead to appointments gone on, which lead to contracts, either listing agreements and or buyer listing agreements signed, which lead to under contracts, which lead to closes. Now, the example that we have down below here is if you can imagine that there's 150 actions being taken, and the result of those 150 actions is 26 people answered the phone, which allowed the agent to set 3 appointments, of which 1 canceled and they went on 2 and gave 2 full presentations. They signed 1 listing contract, which then turned into an under contract and then 1 closing. Now, the reason that these ratios are important is if these ratios get better or worse over time, it gives us an opportunity to look within the business to see where the disconnect is in the process. An example would be if they made 150 calls, but only 10% of the people answered and we had a very low answer ratio, it might be the time of day that they're calling. It might be a list of bad phone numbers or bad contacts. It might be something outside of their control that we can help adjust in order for them to have better results. Now, if they spoke to 26 people and set 0 appointments or gained 0 leads, it might be their scripts that is their biggest challenge. If they're setting appointments and yet all the appointments are canceling, that might be the reason that they're setting the appointment isn't motivating enough to the person they're setting appointments for. If they're setting appointments and they're not getting listing agreements or buyer listing agreements signed, it's probably a lack of a good presentation. If they're getting listing contracts signed and buyer listing contracts signed and they're not getting somebody under contract, we probably need to work on our processes. See, by tracking this, it allows us to guide the agent and coach the agent into the areas that are the most effective for them to improve their business. On a business that's operating at a high level, this is important because a 5% gain in a business will cover a lot of expenses in a year. Now, the way we typically track is we want to track the individual agents on some type of spreadsheet or Google Doc. So here's an example here. You can see Catherine Lewis. She lists the days that she worked, the hours that she worked, the hours that she called, how many dials she had, how many contacts she made, how many appointments were set, how many people went in as a nurture in the pipeline, and how many people were added to the database. This is a great way to begin tracking for your agent. There's many examples of this on the online resource. In fact, we have tracking forms for every type of lead generation, from the listing generators to connect, community, as well as marketing mastery. So each tracking form is adjusted specifically to the agent's individualized lead generation strategy. You can see here, this is a weekly tracking form where an agent can simply fill out the number of contacts they made specifically to each of the individual type of lead generation strategies. So how many sphere of influence, how many expired calls, how many for sale by owners, how many just listed or just sold, how many internet leads, and how many follow-up calls did they make. Now again, I want to be very specific. These are general examples of tracking forms, and we have tracking forms for each type of lead generation strategy that we teach, which there's over 25 different lead generation strategies. Your agent doesn't have to make cold calls for us to track. They can simply track the number of B2B appointments that they're going on, the number of leads that they're following up with, or how many leads that they received through their system, how many leads that they contacted, how many leads did they schedule appointments with, how many of those leads did a buyer agency agreement, and how many of those leads are currently showing. So each individual agent can have a customized weekly tracking form to report their KPIs on. Now lastly, one of the things that I say is the money is in the follow-up. And what I found is successful agents tend to not have great systems when it comes to managing their follow-up. The key to this is giving them a simple way to manage their follow-up or their pipeline. Personally, I think paper or a simple Google Doc is the easiest way. When I say paper, I mean each client is a sheet of paper that has a 3-hole punch and kept in a 3-ring binder, so the agent can look at it every single day or at least once a week to review what clients need to be called that week. A pipeline report can be uploaded into a Google Doc or just simply kept as an Excel spreadsheet. Again, just the name, the contact information, and what the notes were on the last time that agent had followed up.